Hey, and a warm welcome to Awaken Your Potential, the podcast designed to inspire self-improvement and unlock the greatness within you. I'm your host, Mason Lovegrove. Before interviewing a special guest, I'm going to tell you about the time when my climbing passion nearly cost me my life. If you listen closely, you can even hear some great sounds thanks to a stereo microphone I took out with me while practicing parkour. So, get ready to feel awakened. Okay, this was back in 2019. My climbing friend Dennis told me about a transmission tower that they were installing a few kilometers away from our home. And after a long day's work. I was super tired, but over the past 4 years of my parkour, we've never seen one of these towers disconnected from the main electricity. So I was like, okay, I've got to go, I've got to do this. So I grabbed my GoPro, I got my bike, and I started pedaling towards the tower. I met up with Dennis about halfway, and we rode the rest of the way together. When we arrived, I looked at the tower, and I thought, wow, it's so incredible, it's so amazing. I just can't wait to climb it. I was super excited. I started to set up my camera and everything like that, and Dennis just decided to jump on the tower and he started climbing. Quick note before I continue, this is a power transmission tower, those huge electric towers that are about 50 meters tall. There wasn't a ladder, and of course we had no ropes or climbing equipment. But we decided to use the bolts that held the tower together that are on the side on one of the legs. I started to climb, and the higher I got, the more wind was pushing me, but I was persistent. The sun started to go down, and suddenly, at about 3/4 of the way up, this negative voice in the back of my head came out. The voice that is usually there, the voice that keeps me calm in these situations, was gone. And I had this fear in the back of my mind. I became paralyzed. I couldn't move. This was the first time that this has ever happened to me. Dennis was already at the top telling me, Mason, you've got to move. And I knew he was right, because if you're holding on and you're not moving, you consume energy. And this can eventually make you tired, and then, you can fall to your death. So it's a very dangerous thing. After a few minutes, I knew if I didn't move, I would eventually let go, fall, and die. So I decided, okay, you need to take control. So I took a deep breath, and I thought logically. But as I was doing this, my hands started to get sweaty, and I started slipping. But I thought, okay, if I try to climb down now, which is your initial instincts, there's a higher chance of me slipping because of the way the bolts were positioned. So I decided, I've got to get to the top. Once I'm at the top, I will kind of think about it. It was very difficult in this situation, but I managed to take control again, and that negative voice in the back of my head disappeared. My calm, logical thinking voice came back, and it said to me, Mason, you've got to get to the top. So I started climbing. I pushed through, and yeah, it was pretty easy from there. After I reached the top, I was like, wow, that was scary. Me and my friend Dennis, we were laughing. And after this, I instantly began to enjoy the view. I managed to reach my usual meditative state and just enjoy life. So you might think I'm crazy, but climbing and parkour, it's a wonderful thing. Whether I'm running, jumping, swinging, balancing, or hanging, I feel alive. I feel like me, and that's a priceless feeling that we all deserve to feel. Okay, it's time for the interview. I have a special guest with me in the studio. He will remain anonymous though, but he has agreed to answer some questions for us. Stay tuned, because after the interview, I'm going to wrap things up by telling you how parkour can improve your life. Thanks for joining us today. To start off, I just wanted to ask you, how did you first get into parkour, and what captivated you about it?
Yeah, so I'll be honest, it's ages since I started doing parkour, probably 5 or 6 years. I'm not wholly certain. I remember watching a Story video on YouTube. I can't remember exactly which one, but I remember seeing Toby Seagar do a giant cat pass. Cat pass is a vault where you jump over 2 objects, and I was like, that is amazing. That is so cool. I really want to do that. And I'd done sports beforehand, so I did BMXing, and I did, not gymnastics as an extreme, but it's kind of semi-similar, and rock climbing as well. So I thought I'd have a crack at it with my mate in the park and just try and get up a wall, which went terribly. I fell over, but it was all up from there.
Can you share a memorable experience or a moment that made you realize the impact of parkour in your life?
So I did parkour, but I also very much did urban climbing more than parkour. Partially also because I loved it on its own. I loved the feeling of like just being on top of the world and seeing out across the sea, and just truly like that in those moments I felt so alive. The adrenaline, the cool night air, it was just such a visceral experience for me. And I remember one day feeling really down for various reasons, and it was like 1 a.m. and I thought, I'm just going to go climb a roof. I'm just going to go do something that I love doing, and I'm going to feel better. And so I called my mate and we went and climbed a roof, and we sat on top of it looking out across my hometown, seeing all the bits that we'd done before, and we just sat there and for honestly like 3 hours, 4 hours, sat, messed around, climbed a few bits, jumped about a bit, but it was just that simplicity in it, and like the knowing that that was my comfort, like that in my lower moments and in my happier moments I could fall back on this sport and on this experience as something that I could like really enjoy. That was so important to me and so influential in why I kept doing it.
How has parkour influenced your mindset and problem solving in everyday life?
Way I problem solve in everyday life has become synonymous with how I problem solve in parkour. I look at the whole thing that I'm trying to do and I figure out the steps that I need to take to get there, and I make sure that at no point in that process am I feeling overwhelmed or scared or like I can't do it. If I'm trying to do a jump in parkour, if I'm trying to jump between two places, I'll mark that out on the ground and I'll like literally count the steps, make adjustments for any drop, do it as safely as I can, literally just on flat ground. And if I'm trying to do something that scares me in my life, I'll do exactly the same thing. I'll figure out what I'm trying to do, I count the steps, and then I do it again and again. If I'm scared of public speaking, which I used to be, I would say what I was going to say 100 times over until I knew that when I stood on the stage or whatever it was, I wasn't going to fumble my words because I'd said it 100 times before. So there wasn't any fear that needed to be there because I knew it wasn't going to go wrong, if that makes sense.
Have you used parkour as a means of personal development or self-discovery? If so, how?
It's kind of required. Every time you do something, every time you put yourself out there, especially something scary, especially something dangerous, and especially something with other people and publicly, you do. Whether or not you mean to, you're using whatever that thing is that you're doing as a means of self-expression and as a way to better yourself. And if you're not, you're doing it wrong, I think. So to be more specific, in parkour, there is a lot of danger. There is a risk of hurting yourself irreparably even, and so you have to be 100% certain every time that you do something of that level of risk that you've put in the practice, that you've made sure that you're capable of it, and that you made sure that you've made like every possible scenario in your head and you've gone through it. It's an incredibly mentally challenging sport if you're doing it correctly, if you're putting in the due care and diligence, and I think that is such an important part of it. It means that every time I go out and I push those limits and I make myself scared, and then I rein that fear back in and I manage to do the thing that I was scared of in the first place, it's so fulfilling, it's so important. And in those like big moments, in those scary moments, you change yourself a lot. You really come to terms with who you are on a deeper level than quite often I do in my normal life, or if I do at all. I think it's really helped me, yeah, in terms of just improving myself and in becoming more confident, and to an extent as well, getting out of a lot of depressive episodes. And that's the final bit I'd like to talking about the good parts of your life, but sometimes your life is really difficult, and sometimes in my life it's been really difficult, mentally challenging, and parkour has been a crutch in a lot of ways to support that. I've used it as a way of proving myself to myself, and that's a very awkward phrasing. Like I spoke about, in those moments, you do kind of realise yourself over again. You do very much like prove that you can do the thing that you set out to do. It's a moment of a lot of commitment.
I just want to say thank you for coming. Like, I really appreciate you joining us today and sharing your experiences, and yeah, and I hope you've had a good time.
I've loved it. I've loved the opportunity to talk about myself and to talk about this thing that I enjoy and that I hope other people will enjoy. It's been a really good experience.
Finally, the moment we have all been waiting for. So how can parkour help you awaken your potential? Well, parkour has helped me become better, but of course something we need to acknowledge is that we're all different. We all have different abilities and passions. By sharing my experience and the way parkour has made me feel, I'm hoping to help you find and embrace that something that makes you feel amazing. From running and dancing to painting and journaling, these can all help you improve your discipline, your focus, escape reality, find that state of flow, de-stress, and overall make us rise to the challenge that is awakening our true potential. In today's episode, we took a thrilling leap into the heart-pounding world of parkour, the very sport that helped me start my own awakening journey. As we wind down this episode, I just wanted to say thanks for tuning in. Remember, you have potential and it's your mission to awaken it. Until next time, stay curious, stay inspired, and keep awakening that incredible potential within you. Thanks for listening.